Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. It is a Thursday edition of the show, our fourth of the week and our last of the week as we get closer to that weekend. Well, not the last for some, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Got a good show coming up today. We're going to talk about the Bucs who are getting healthy for week one, which is coming up not this Sunday, but next Sunday when the Bucs host the Washington Commanders. We'll talk about any worries on the injury front and get into more Bucs news and notes as well. I'm your host, Matt Matera, joined with me, my fellow colleague from PewterReport.com, the typical Thursday duo, though it's been a while since the two of us have been on together. Adam Slavon. Adam, what's going on?
What's going on, Matt? It's a pleasure to be on with you. And for a Thursday edition of the show, you might think, there's not too much news. There was no practice today. But there's plenty of injury news to get into, especially with the season opener just around the corner. And for the most part, good news, I would say, in terms of the Bucs.
Agreed. There's not any insane injuries to worry about. Of course, we will discuss Yaya Diaby, which is the biggest of the bunch, but let's remember that, the Bucs, along with the rest of the NFL, it's not just the Bucs taking off this week. There's going to be a little more time for everybody to rest up, and there's really only two players that are going to be out for a significant time. One of them being Chase Edmonds, who unfortunately is done for the year already. He had one practice in training camp. Now he's done for the rest of the season. And Rakim Jarrett, the wide receiver, will miss at least the first 4 games of the year as he is on injured reserve as well. So a bit of a surprise with Chase Edmonds. I'm not exactly how he would have really fared into the overall running back room, considering how well Bucky Irving did and the big step forward that Sean Tucker did. But Rakim Jarrett, I think, may have shaken up the wide receiver room for the better, but it would have made the roster cuts that much more interesting.
Oh, for sure. Especially when looking at and seeing the Bucs only kept 5 wide receivers. You kind of wonder if that 6 wide receiver spot, if Rakim Jarrett is healthy, if it will go to him when he's activated. But in terms of the wide receiver room, it made it that much more interesting when you have guys like Ryan Miller, Cody Thompson, and Cameron Johnson even making it despite playing 1 preseason game. If Rakim Jarrett's healthy, if he's practicing throughout camp, it may have been a hard decision whether it was Cam Johnson or Jarrett to be that last wide receiver. But going back to Edmonds, only played 1 practice, and then you never really found out why. It was undisclosed by the team with him sitting out, but it really hurts his chances because you have Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving. Edmonds pretty much looks done in Tampa, I would say.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's an overall good guy. Didn't really provide a ton for the Buccaneers last season, even though he was like the second string running back. And I think part of that was they just didn't give him as many opportunities. He did miss a little bit of the season last year, but it was clear and cut that it was Rachaad White and Rachaad White only that was going to lead the Bucs in the ground game. And I think you bring up a good point with Edmonds. The fact that his time's probably done in Tampa has less to do with him, and he could latch on somewhere else next season.
Yeah.
He's been around the league. But more to do with just this overall young core group at running back. I mean, Rachaad White, who I just mentioned, leading the way, he's only going into his 3rd season. Sean Tucker took a big step in this year's preseason, ripping off several runs of 20 yards or more. And then Bucky Irving is, he's kind of the belle of the ball at the moment. He is living up to the expectations. Now, that was the preseason, and Bucs fans won't care about what he did in the preseason if he's not showing up for the regular season, especially week 1. But overall, even though there's an abundance of youth and sometimes inexperience is a bad thing, I with Rachaad White as the main guy, I'm not concerned about the lack of experience with the next 2 guys.
Yeah, for sure. And especially even having Chase Edmonds around this season, if he's even in the building, I think that kind of helps in terms of mentorship. You've kind of seen him at practice. But in terms of the running back room, not too worried about, even though there is that relative lack of experience, because you saw Rachaad White kind of take the reins last season. You have a guy like Bucky Irving, who by all accounts Like, he's looking at the tape. He mentioned that this week, and he's just trying to find ways to get better. He had a really efficient preseason, as did Sean Tucker. So you kind of see with Jason Light yesterday talking about the running back room, it's a great room. And each of those guys mentioned, they bring something different to the table. And I think overall, there is excitement there. And you also had a story kind of talking about the underrated position on the roster. I very much think it is the running backs.
Yeah, I do want to get back to that conversation about just overall most underrated positions. So we'll table that for now because you
Yeah.
know our rule, ladies and gentlemen. If you super chat us, we're happy to get to whatever topic you want to talk about or whatever question you have. Now, we were going to talk about this on the show, so might as well just get into it now. Thank you, Malcolm Harvey, for this $1.99 super
Thank you,
chat.
Malcolm.
Who said, "What's the rumor going around with Shaq?" Of course, talking about Shaq Barrett. So the big rumor that went on is Shaq Barrett appeared on the Kay Adams, the Up and Adams show that she has during the week on our YouTube channel, which, cool enough, Pewter Report alumni Trevor Sycamore was also on the same episode. So a ton of Buccaneers flavor on today's episode of Up and Adams with Trevor and then Shaq Barrett. So Shaq was on having a conversation with Kay. As we all know, Shaq retired a little over a month ago. I believe it was July 20th when he retired from football. He was with the Miami Dolphins, went through their offseason program, was there for like mini camp and all that stuff, but decided that he didn't want to play football anymore. And of course, spend time with his family, which he's very, very close with his family. And so he was chatting with Kay Adams. And as it went, Shaq pretty much said that there's one perfect situation in which he would come back and play football. And he had mentioned like that he still got it and all these things, but he said, "I'm happily retired." He also said, "I don't want to put this out there because it's not likely going to happen." All these things. Kay kept, prying into Shaq, like, "What team? What do you think it is? Who is it?" Then he's like, "Oh, it's not about chasing rings or anything like that because he already has 2 Super Bowls. It's one team." And he said it had to. Then it goes further and he talks about, it's a place where I either have a house or formerly had a house. And it was a long way of saying the only perfect situation in which I will return to playing football is for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he further said, you can check this all out on their YouTube channel. We'll have a story on it on pewterreport.com as well. So I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he said he has so much love for Tampa. He told his wife as well, like, he'll take a pay cut. This is while he was still on the team when he had 2 years left on his deal. He said, "I'll take a pay cut for Tampa," because it really meant a lot to him and his family, how supportive and how much the Bucs were there for him when his family suffered the unfortunate and tragic loss of their 2-year-old daughter when it happened in April of 2023. So he just, still has so much love for the Buccaneers just based on the support that the Bucs gave him with the passing of Araya. And, the Bucs community was there for Shaq as well, too. And, Shaq means so much to the Bucs and Bucs fans. So there is one situation where Shaq Barrett would return to the Buccaneers, Adam. What do you think about what he had to say?
I mean, it makes perfect sense in his case that the Bucs would be the only team that he would come back for. I mean, he had his best seasons here, made the most career impact here, and especially served as a pillar in the community, and not just the community, in the locker room, especially last season after going through everything and still holding that high standard and just being a high caliber person. I think that's one of the biggest things with Shaq Barrett. But Jason Light back at the NFL Combine, I remember when we were kind of all standing around, he left the door open to a return. And that was when the team was on the precipice of releasing him. And they ate a lot of money to release him. But he still was like, hey, the door's open for a Shaq Barrett return. That's kind of always stuck around with me. In terms of where the roster's at, I think you kind of saw the Bucs give the reins to the young guys, right? Chris Braswell, Marquise Watts, Jose Ramirez.
Right.
But let's say, like, Yaya Diaby, he's hopefully trending upward and will play week 1. But if he gets re-injured or if another guy gets injured, would the Bucs, if they're on a roll mid-season, maybe say, hey, Shaq Barrett, you want to come back and play the last little bit of the year? You can't rule it out.
Right. Like, they're already paying taxes on Shaq Barrett because of the contract that that they gave to him originally, and the fact that Shaq is already open about, hey, I'd love to play for the Bucs, and essentially I'll play for whatever price you guys want to give me. It does put the Bucs in a very nice situation of they kind of know that at any point they could go back to the Shaq and it'll be kind of mutual on both parts. Like Shaq will pretty much, I would imagine, play for like the veteran minimum, and the Bucs don't have to pay too much. And let's remember, they were looking to try to bring in a veteran with Randy Gregory in that situation. And obviously they paid more for Randy Gregory. In all reality, though, and don't get me wrong, I love Shaq. I love what he meant to the Bucs. I love who he is as a person and everything like that. In all likelihood, it's pretty, I don't want to say unrealistic, but there's just not a good chance that it's going to happen. To your point, they kept 6 outside linebackers after roster cuts this year. As Jose says, I'm cool with Shaq coming back. I would like Shaq to be on the Buccaneers, but I'm trying to look at it a way of like how it actually fits, because I think it would have to be some long-term injuries. It would have to be some type of long-term injury to Yaya, which Bucs fans don't want to see, or really one of the main 3 guys, Yaya, Anthony Nelson, or Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, because the rest of the group is very young. Chris Braswell, a rookie. Jose Ramirez, second year, didn't take a snap last season.
First year on the active roster.
Yeah, exactly, on the practice squad. Marquise Watts, very, very limited. So it would have to be a situation where there are several injuries to the Bucs at outside linebacker. Because let's also remember, they put Daniel Grizak on the practice squad too. So I think it would have to be a situation of several injuries, long-term injuries. But do I want to see Shaq Barrett back in a Bucs uniform? Yeah, of course. He's a great person. He's a veteran presence. He still thinks he can play. And let's remember, he would be another season removed from an Achilles injury. And it wouldn't be a situation where Shaq is coming in and like immediately taking away reps from all of the other guys. And like Shaq has to
play every snap.
Exactly. I think Shaq would know like he's coming into a specific role type of situation where, maybe it's a third down guy or maybe in certain situations. Now, the other part of this too, which puts a cog into everything that we're saying, as Craig Ford says, don't the Dolphins own Shaq rights? They do. They still own his rights because he was under contract with Miami. So the Bucs would have to give Miami some sort of compensation. I think it would end up being some type of draft pick. Now, the Bucs did this before with Rob Gronkowski, as Greg
worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and it worked out pretty well for sure. But Gronk was a staple of the Bucs offense and did it for several years in the way that Shaq is pretty much just here for a one and done type of thing. So do the Bucs want to spend a draft pick to bring in Shaq Barrett for half the season? Really only Jason Light and the rest of the front office can answer that. I mean, if it's a 7th round pick, the Bucs end up trading those picks anyway. They don't like waiting that late. Never say never, as Justin Bieber once said. It's not that likely, and it would mean that some of the top players for the Bucs are injured. But, maybe there's a perfect world where Bucs players don't get injured and Shaq's still on the team one way or another. But, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, and at least the Bucs know what they would have in Shaq Barrett in terms of what kind of person, what kind of player he is, rather than trying to bring in a guy like Randy Gregory who never plays it down. I mean, having Barrett like on standby, on call, he doesn't even have to be on the practice squad, just knowing that maybe he has the door open as well. I think it's comforting for the Bucs, and if they needed it and it was an emergency.
Yeah, no question about it. So I would like to see it for sure, but who knows if we'll see it one day. I want to get to another comment. Hizo813, who is a Pewter Report YouTube channel member as well. Thank you, Hizo. Says, as much as I love Shaq, we don't need him eating into the outside linebacker room snaps. Those guys need plenty of reps to continue developing. I do agree with that. And we also have to remember Shaq's not playing special teams at this point. So, like, you kind of need Marquise Watts because he does that. Jose Ramirez is at least quicker as far as, coverage down the field. I know they don't have to run as far anymore on kickoff, but something to consider as well. Let's get to this next super chat. And you guys have been great with the comments as well. We'll make sure to get to more as well. Where was that super chat? Presty, thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Preston.
much, Presty, for this $1.99 super chat. I think I'm not totally sure, but
Yeah.
anyway, Presty's asking, do you think Zyon McCollum will shine this season? Adam, I'll let you answer this one first.
So I think he will. I think that by the end of the year, he's going to establish himself as the best cornerback on the Bucs roster. I think this will kind of be a breakout season for him. If there was one player maybe to buy stock in, I would say Zyon McCollum. He has all the tools, all the intangibles. He spent the past 2 years learning Todd Bowles' defense. He seems really confident that he's going to get 6 interceptions this year. This is his stated
Yeah.
goal. He's out there catching 50 balls a day. I think the combination of his physical traits and his mental ability, it's going to catch up this year. So to answer your question, Presty, I think, yeah, he's going to shine, and he is really going to make a name for himself.
I go back to what John Spytek said when he was on the Pewter Report podcast last week. And he brought up Zyon on his own and had kind of mentioned that there hasn't been a lot of conversation about Zyon. And overall, that's a good thing because usually if you're talking about a corner, it's either they got an interception or something like that, or they're getting beat pretty badly on
Yeah.
a play. I'm expecting a step forward for Zyon McCollum, and I think it's been great. He's had some good coverage on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Do I necessarily think he's going to shine this season? I think he's going to take a big step forward in the same way that really this Bucs team took a big step forward, and we're expecting them to take that next big step. Zion's going into his third year, so we have to remember he's got that contract year coming up next season. I think that is when we're going to get the true blossoming Zyon McCollum as a clear-cut number one corner on this team. Because I still do believe, as much as I like him, I do kind of think this is going to be the last year for Jamel Dean in Tampa Bay,
Yeah.
just based on his contract alone. But when you get all the money from Jamel Dean, that can be allocated towards Zyon McCollum. Yes, the Bucs will still have questions at corner because Bryce Hall's on a one-year deal, and Tavier Thomas is also on a one-year deal, and he moves around all over the place. But that's why Tyree Thunderbird could be very valuable as well. So shine, I'm going to say no, but still be a very good and solid player. Yes, I'm not overly concerned about Zyon McCollum. Have another $2 super chat from Eric Moreno. Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you,
As
Eric.
Eric says, memorial for my uncle Saturday in Daytona. R.I.P. Jim. Very sorry for your loss, Eric. We will be thinking about you, and R.I.P. to your uncle Jim. JB says, I think Shaq, JB, of course, another YouTube channel member, says, I think Shaq would be a great role model for some of the pass rushers, but I can't see him starting unless we have some injuries. I think we also have to remember, with the exception of Braswell, all these guys were in the locker room with Shaq last year, including Marquise Watts and Jose Ramirez. So they already got some wisdom from Shaq Barrett. Not that they couldn't use more.
This is true. And kind of thinking with Shaq, if he were to come back, maybe in like a situational role, kind of what you talked about with him not playing every snap, but maybe on third downs, because I think he 59 career sacks or something like that. He would have a lot of value
Big
being a
number.
third down rusher.
Yeah, I think so. And as long as he's got his speed, that's his bread and butter. I also want to say thank you to Brandon Riley, who just became a Pewter Report YouTube channel member.
Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you very much, Brandon Riley. We really appreciate that. Thank you. And this is a good opportunity as well, as we want to say thank you to all of the Pewter Report Platinum members that are at the highest level of YouTube channel subscribers at pewterreport.com. So thank you to Guru, Scott Federico, Parformance 2, and Scotty J. We appreciate all of you for being a Pewter Platinum channel member. Remember, if you are a Platinum channel member, you get a shout out every single day on the Pewter Report podcast. We love all of our channel members for sure. So don't want to leave you guys out. And of course, if you are a Premier member or a Pewter Report Platinum member, as we just talked about, there will be another Pewter Insider tomorrow on Friday at 11 o'clock Eastern. Myself and Scott Reynolds will be on, giving a little more insight and some inside scoop that has not been told on the Pewter Report podcast. That will be specific to the Pewter Premier members and the Pewter Platinum members. The link is in our community chat at the moment. If you guys can't make the show live, that's quite all right. You can start submitting questions, and we will read them and answer them on the show. And if you want to join us at 11 a.m., the link is in that conversation, that chat as well. So tomorrow we'll be talking a little bit as well about the Bucs strategy versus the Commanders as they have a game next Sunday at 4 in the afternoon. Very much looking forward to the start of the regular season. But Adam, let's get back to our conversation just before we started getting the super chats. And by all means, please keep the super chats rolling. We're happy to get off topic again. Actually, we just got
let's get a little off topic.
Super chat. Let's get more off topic. Thank you to Black Gold 1999 with your traditional 1999 super chat. Thank you so much, Black Gold, who says, I have to stop listening to the sports TV shows and TikTok sports analysts because all of them have wrote us off, and that's some BS. Still think we will win 13 games. Wow, 13 is quite bold. What I will say is I loved the other day, actually yesterday, when we spoke to Jason Light, and Jason Light got asked a question about really just, the Falcons being the quote unquote favorite in the division. And Jason had a smirk and he's like, that's great. That's great. The Falcons should be, they should be the favorite in the NFC South this year. That is the DNA of the Bucs. They love proving people wrong. Jason Light will retweet or quote tweet people in the middle of games. He did it to John Ledyard before. He did it to other people when things aren't going the Bucs way, and then they turn it around and prove people wrong. They did it with the Saints last season. I see no reason why the Bucs can't do it again this year based on the turnaround of this team, continuing to build through the draft, having a younger team, but a team that's played together for a little bit longer. By all means, have at it. So, Adam, I'll ask you to kind of build on top of this comment from Black Gold 1999. Like, where's the biggest issue with this Bucs team? Like, what position, things of that nature? Because I've been asked that before, and I'm finding, difficult responses that don't just include, if they get injured at a number of spots. Because you could say that for any team.
That is true, and that's a great question. Because when you look at, heading into the offseason, the offensive line was probably the weakest link of the team. And they solidified it in a big way by getting Graham Barton, and you kind of see Cody Mauch, Luke Gedeke, and Tristan Wirfs all kind of holding it down. So that's not the weakest link anymore. We already kind of talked about running back being a great room and an underrated position. I think you're going to get a lot of production there. In terms of the outside linebackers and defensive line, I mean, the Bucs had 48 sacks last year, which was top 10 in the NFL. I think it was 7th. So you're fine there. Still have Levante at inside linebacker. The safeties, if they're healthy with Whitehead and Winfield's one of the top in the league. So maybe you kind of circle back and say corner. If Jamel Dean or Zyon McCollum gets injured, maybe one of them makes that kind of a weaker room. And because the depth behind them is Bryce Hall, Funderburk, and Javier Thomas. So maybe that's the weakest area on this team. But otherwise, it would take an injury for me to be really unsure about one position group in particular.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because really the biggest issue for any holes that the Bucs had, I think really got cleaned up this year. Yeah. I mean, you essentially at corner, you essentially replaced Carlton with Zion. You got a pretty solid backup in Bryce Hall, and I would say a better fourth stringer with Tyreek Funderburk than maybe what Tampa Bay had last season. You hit the nail on the head when it came to the offensive line and the growth that they had. And we also got to look at Liam Cohen as a better addition too. Yeah. And of course, safety with Jordan Whitehead back in the mix. I mean, that's an upgrade at safety. So especially defensively.
Yeah.
Again, barring injuries, I just don't see where there's a huge glaring hole for this team. And then offensively, I do think it kind of comes down to Baker Mayfield and making sure he continues to progress and doesn't have a up and down year, kind of like he's had with Cleveland, where he'll have a really good season and then it kind of, backfire the year after. But I think having some stability with a similar offense and a guy that he's worked with Liam Cohen, will go a very long way. But we mentioned the corners a moment ago. Tyreek Funderburk is another one that is injured for the moment. He was in a walking boot, but the good news is, Adam, is that he's been out of it now. He was running at practice the other day, going full sprints. He spoke to the media as well. So I think Funderburk being able to move along, shout out to the All-American rejects, him being able to move is pretty good. The other kind of injuries to pay attention to in the secondary, Kayvon Merriweather has been out for a little bit, and then Josh Hayes has been injured too. Between Merriweather and Josh Hayes, which one is a bigger loss for the Bucs at the moment if one of them isn't able to go?
So with seeing Funderburk kind of trending in the right direction, and it sounds like he's going to be pretty close to 100%. He didn't want to reveal it yesterday, but you can kind of tell he's making good signs. I would definitely say Kayvon Merriweather. The way that he made an impact and shined throughout the preseason, this picture here against T. Higgins in the end zone, it looks like he's grown and come along a long way in terms of the defense, getting reps down the stretch last year. I think he's the bigger loss, especially considering that Bryce Hall, Thomas, and Funderburk are all there at corner. Josh Hayes doesn't really see the field unless the Bucs they're down a few guys. Where Hayes really shines as special teams, but that's also where Merriweather makes an impact. So I think in terms of total value as a player, the Bucs have missed Merriweather more. And I know that injury in the Jaguars game with the knee injury, he was down for a minute, which is a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
Haven't really seen much of an update with him other than just being on the sideline during practice.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely Merriweather because he can step in. And he had some moments last year where he had to play significant time on defense. And, he can kind of be that thudding safety, move him up in the box if, something happens to Jordan Whitehead, where Antoine Winfield Jr., it looks like Christian Izien can play that role. Obviously, Tyke Smith can kind of be moved around everywhere. And the Bucs have that luxury. Todd Bowles specifically has that luxury because Javier Thomas can play 3 different spots, which is what he's essentially doing. I have nothing against Josh Hayes, but the Bucs special teams, and we'll see because it's different this year with the new coach and obviously the new kickoff and everything. But I don't know, I don't think Josh Hayes is an all-pro special teamer by any means. He's a good special teamer, but if the Bucs miss the playoffs, I don't think it's going to be because Josh Hayes wasn't available.
He didn't make that one tackle.
Yeah, wasn't available on special teams. But one thing that is available and great and it'll make you feel better is having a Celsius energy drink, which, of course, is the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. They have so many fantastic flavors of Celsius, including some of their newest ones, the sparkling watermelon lemonade and the sparkling kiwi strawberry. Adam and I were talking about that new flavor, especially the watermelon lemonade. Adam was in particular, a big fan of it. My personal favorite, still the Arctic Vibe, but again, you can't go wrong with Celsius energy drink flavors. So if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest location where you can go pick one up. Could be a Walmart, a Publix, a 7-Eleven, a Wall-Bounds, a Publix, a Piggly Wiggly, a Stop and Shop, or it could be your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you keep going to your bodega, and you love Celsius and you want more, you can buy it in bulk by going on over to Amazon. Click on the subscribe and save, and you can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drink, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Celsius energy drinks. Get them anywhere.
I am rocking the sparkling cherry cola today. I know Scott did the live taste test. That was really good. I like that.
He did. That was fun to do. We may have to do another one sometime soon. But not until we get to these super chats as we have the more rolling in. So thank you so much to all of you. We'll start with Brandon Riley, who's also a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, who says, I know I'm biased, but with this rookie draft class, free agent acquisitions, and Liam Cohen, I'm stoked for this season to play out. I'm just so stoked for football. I'm in full agreement with you, Brandon. I'm pumped for football tonight. I'm pumped for college football on Friday night. I'm pumped for a full slate of college football on Saturday, especially with some marquee games like Clemson against Georgia, and you got Notre Dame against Texas A&M. There's another big game in the afternoon. Oh, yeah, Miami and Florida. So a lot of great games. And then the fun's not done because the Bucs play the following Sunday at 4 in the afternoon. So you can go in and watch and enjoy football. And then the Bucs play even later since they don't have a 1 o'clock game. But Brandon, the way that the Bucs have crushed these draft classes. I mean, Adam, it's really incredible. We're going to see a starter in Graham Barton, a key contributor in Chris Braswell, who may end up starting by, November, December. Jalen McMillan is essentially a starter with the 3 wide receiver setup. Tyke Smith, and most likely, is going to be starting at the nickel. And, oh, by the way, Bucky Irving is
He's
in
around
the mix as well. Then we'll see how, Devin Culp ends up and some of the other guys. But, I mean, the free agent class, Jordan Whitehead returning, the re-signings of everybody. What excites you the most about this Bucs team?
I do want to say, with football season around, Matt, we're back. We're so back.
We are incredibly back. Back.
So what excites me most of all the things that Brandon mentioned here, definitely have to say the rookie draft class. You mentioned it, with all the guys that are coming in, already going to be contributors and key starters. And you didn't even mention Elijah Klein, Cameron Johnson. There's a lot of excitement there, especially seeing Klein play right tackle. The buzz has been building on Cameron Johnson all offseason. The fact that he played 1 preseason game and made the team, with Jason Light and everybody's just heaping praise on him. And then, not to mention Michael Pratt being added too on the practice squad. That's like a free draft pick, pretty much, a free 7th rounder. So I would say with the rookie class in general, there is just so much excitement. And with the Bucs already unprecedentedly hitting and keeping so many of their players, was it 22 of 23 the last 3 seasons? 44 of 53 players on the roster started their career in Tampa Bay. I mean, you just don't see that when you go around the NFL. Like, the formula that this front office has and the strength of the front office, led by Jason Light, John Spytek, Mike Greenberg, they're the best in the business at what they do. And you see that on the field. So to get back to your question, Brandon, or your comment, just talking about the rookie class in general, the free agent acquisitions with Whitehead, and then also Liam Cohen, there is a lot to be stoked about.
Yeah, I think I'm most excited about truly seeing how this offense will look with Liam Cohen, because we've seen some real bright spots in practice, in training camp, and in the preseason games. But obviously, they didn't show everything that they have to offer in the preseason. And if the run game was looking pretty good then, and I'm not even including the Dolphins game, because that was a lot of the Bucs starters against the Dolphins backups. But those first 2 games, the way the Bucs were able to attack the ground in essentially regular vanilla type of offensive plays, just imagine what they can do, like getting Tristan Wirfs out in space on a pitch or an end around to the outside, finding different ways to get McMillan the ball, or obviously Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And again, it's nothing on Dave Canales, but it just feels like the Bucs unlocked a new level with Liam Cohen, an experienced play caller coming from the McVay tree, a little like more specifically than Canales coming from like Shane Waldron and Pete Carroll. So, I mean, who doesn't love watching that Rams offense from a couple seasons ago, with the exception of when they played the Bucs? Let me throw that asterisk in there. But that's one of the best offenses to watch. It comes from the Shanahan offense that we saw in San Francisco, and that's one of the best offenses in the league that, of course, the Bucs will also play against this year. So it feels like the Bucs unlocked a new level with Liam Cohen, and that's what I'm very excited to see. However, Revfish, who is also a YouTube channel member, and thank you for the super chat of $4.99, Revfish says, biggest issue is the new offensive scheme. Last year, we heard that it took 9 weeks to get it, yet for some reasons no one's concerned, and I don't know why. Fair comment and fair concern. I think the biggest difference, in my opinion, from what I've watched and from what we've seen, is first of all, this offense isn't entirely different from Dave Canales, the way that Canales' offense was very, very different from the Bruce
Byron
Arians,
Leftwich.
Byron Leftwich type of system. So there's less, ground to cover with Liam Cohen coming in. I think one of the biggest differences as well is kind of in-game situations and putting more on the plate of Baker Mayfield and some of the other guys that Canales didn't necessarily have. Like Canales would have one play, and sure, there were things to check out of and things of that nature. But Liam Cohen essentially is like, listen, we're going to give you 2 plays, maybe sometimes even 3, and we're going to call the best play that attacks the defense. So if the defense is heavily sided on the left side, well, they're going to run the ball to the right. If they're put several players in the box, well, they're going to check to the passing play that, hits the guy deep or gives a pick play to Mike Evans that gets him wide open. There are more specific designs in this offense with Liam Cohen that I don't believe is going to take 9 weeks. Now, if it does, then yeah, I think the Bucs have a major problem on their hands. But I think we also have to remember the Bucs are going to have an even better defense this year that I don't think has to carry the Bucs by any means. But we're also talking about year 2 of Baker and Mike and Chris, and an offensive line that's pretty much played together for a while, except for Graham Barton and Ben Bredesen. So there are a lot of other factors that you can't necessarily compare Canales to Liam Cohen. But there are the other factors kind of lean in the favor of Cohen just based off of, the team chemistry overall.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think those elements kind of ease the transition of going from Dave Canales to Liam Cohen into where I'd like to make the analogy where Byron Leftwich, that offense, it was like a kind of a breaking down Honda Civic, right? A very reliable car, but you kind of see the wheels coming off. With Dave Canales last year, you got that fancy new Camaro. And now with Liam Cohen, it's the same car with some new tires, a bigger spoiler. It's going to look better. It's going to be an upgrade, but there's not going to be that big acclimation period where you're going from Leftwich to Canales, and it's such a stark difference. The difference between Canales and Cohen isn't that much, but you will see the refinement and the upgrades of what Cohen runs in that West Coast offense, that McVay tree. It's going to be similar terminology. You're going to see different personnel packages on the field, but I think that helps the Bucs. Instead of running 12 personnel like they did last season with 2 tight ends, you're going to see McMillan out there more. You're going to see more motion. I think motion was one of the key words last year, but you're going to see even more of it this year. So I think in terms of everything, with Baker Mayfield being more comfortable, having worked with Cohen, you're going to see the offense adjusting and acclimating probably in the first couple weeks of the season, I'd say.
Very well said, and I like the car analogy overall. Let's mix it up a little bit, talking about a guy, we mentioned his name on the show, but some very important news on Jordan Whitehead is he has returned back to practice for the Buccaneers. So they practice on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. And, when practice starts out and we only get the first 30 minutes, we get all of training camp. But now that the Bucs are in essentially regular season mode, we get the regular season practice times overall, where we get the first about half an hour of practice. And then after, we get to talk to Coach Bowles and go into the open locker room. But as the Bucs were all warming up, Jordan Whitehead was out there. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Wait, Jordan Whitehead is he's actually practicing? And he was. Yes, they were in shorts and everything, but he had shells on. He had a helmet. He did some individual drills running around after. So I wasn't sure if it's one of those things where the Bucs were easing Jordan Whitehead back in and then he would ramp it up next week. But no. I asked Todd Bowles after what's going on with Jordan Whitehead, how much did he practice? And he said he practiced in full. So he is a full go, which I think is a great sign, since Jordan Whitehead missed a lot of training camp. And, there was a ton of excitement going all the way back to March after Whitehead signed with the Bucs. It was the reunion of him and Antoine Winfield Jr., who were great friends off the field. They won a Super Bowl together on the field, and we were going to see them kind of pretty much go and crack skulls. But because Whitehead, unfortunately, was injured early on, we got to see a lot of Antoine Winfield Jr., and that was great, but we didn't get to see that dynamic duo, that tandem of Winfield and Whitehead together. But now, at least, they got to have some more communication practicing together this week, and of course, next week leading up to Washington, too.
Yeah, I think it was encouraging this week to see Jordan out there kind of doing some workouts, catching the football, using that resistance band. Not worried about him in terms of being ready for week 1. I mean, obviously, he knows what to expect playing alongside Antoine Winfield Jr., playing in the Todd Bowles defense. But if there's a silver lining to Whitehead missing all that time since being injured, I think it was July 30th at night practice, is that it gave opportunity for guys like Kayvon Merriweather and Izzy and Marcus Banks, Rashad Wisdom, to get the opportunities to get playing time, to see the field, and to ultimately make the bottom of the roster in the practice squad. And so there is a silver lining there. And then also with Jordan Whitehead, he's going to be back. He's going to be ready for the season opener. So there's not a concern there.
Now, the biggest concern for the Buccaneers injury-wise going into the season, of course, is one Yaya Diaby. We know what happened with Yaya. It was a high ankle sprain early-ish into training camp. He had been dominating, annihilating, really any word you want to use about a player being successful at his profession in the game of football. That was Yaya Diaby. The good news that came out of it was that Yaya looked to be ready for the start of the regular season. Now, we've spoken to Yaya a little bit, not in front of like 1,000 cameras and things like that. We've seen him at practice. I saw him in the locker room yesterday. All signs are still pointing to that Yaya is going to be good to go for week 1 of the regular season. If Yaya is not ready, though, what's the concern level for you, Adam, with the rest of the outside linebacker group if they have to pick up the slack? Even let's just say it's for like 2 games. What do you think about that situation?
So I don't think it's a really pressing situation. I don't think the Bucs need to ring the phone for Shaq Barrett in week 1 if Yaya's not ready to go. I think there's enough growth that you've seen with Chris Braswell, with Jose Ramirez, Marquise Watts, and then also having Joe Tryon-Shenka and Anthony Nelson kind of fill in the blanks, fill in where needed. Those veteran guys, along with the rookies, I think they can hold down the fort for a couple of games. But looking at Yaya's situation, by the time they kick off against the Commanders in week 1, he will have had 5 weeks to heal from the high ankle sprain. And typically it's about 4 to 6 weeks healing process. So he's right in the middle of that timeline. And then based on the man, you look at him, you would think he's probably going to recover quickly. I mean, that is Yaya Diaby, the quick healer. So I don't think there is much of a concern. But if he doesn't play week 1, I think the guys in the room, there's a reason that they kept 6 of them around. They're talented enough. They can hold it down.
Yeah, if it's more than 2 games, I would be worried. But even like for the first game, they're playing Jaden Daniels. Like Jose Ramirez is fast, and I'm not saying Yaya is slow, but like I wouldn't mind Jose Ramirez kind of chasing after Jaden Daniels when he's going to be a rookie who's probably going to end up running a lot. 1, because it's a big part of his game, and 2, we know how Todd Bowles likes to dial up all of these crazy, looks and blitzes and all these different things. I trust JTS. I know people don't love JTS, but I trust him if he has to start for a couple of games. He's better in the run than people think. He can get to the backfield. He can create pressure. He doesn't always finish the job, but again, that's why you have Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey. And, oh, by the way, a blitzing Antoine Winfield Jr. and a blitzing Tyke Smith and Jordan Whitehead. So let's remember that there will be other situations for Bucs to, make big plays and have an impact for the Bucs this season. Of course, we all want to make big plays. Sometimes you got to spend big money to make big plays. But if you want to manage your money the right way, there's no better people to work with than with Muni Financial.
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Dude, congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you. And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
That's right. Muni Financial has proudly been serving clients across the country since 1980. They can help you out with a number of things like legacy and retirement planning, insurance services, annuities, sales and trading. They can set up a college account for your kid, too, if they plan on attending school after high school, if they want to go to university. So give them a call, get a free consultation. They don't just have places in Colorado and Tampa. You can be in Maine, you can be in Oklahoma, you can be in Delaware or California. You can be all over the place. Maybe one of the college football teams that you're watching this upcoming weekend. South Carolina or Ohio or Oregon. Shout out to Bucky Irving. So you can be all over the place, and Muni Financial can help you. So give them a call, get a free consultation over at Muni Financial. Another player that was out on Wednesday's practice was Trey Palmer. That one came as a little bit of a surprise because he did practice the day before. So it's one of those, did he get injured in practice? Will he be back for the next week? So he's someone to pay attention to, because if Trey Palmer is for whatever reason out against Washington, that opens the door, I think, for Cameron Johnson to be the punt returner or potentially the kick returner as well, even though we've seen Sean Tucker in that role and Bucky Irving too. But yeah, Trey Palmer, someone to pay attention to. Justin School as well is another that had missed some time, and School obviously is going to be important, I think, in the mix for the Buccaneers heading into this season, just based on his ability to play tackle, kind of replace Tristan Wirfs in those situations. So those are a couple of other big names. I'm curious, though, if something happens to Trey Palmer, does that mean that Cody Thompson, who many feel should have been on the roster in the first place, does that mean Cody Thompson is the first one to get a call?
Right when you mentioned Trey Palmer and him being injured, if he isn't ready to go, I think Cody Thompson is the guy that the Bucs would elevate to the active roster. And then that bumps up Cameron Johnson, as you mentioned, to that wide receiver 4 in Washington week 1. You might see him get a few snaps in the game. And then Cody Thompson, he's going to be kind of that special team guy. Maybe he is the other person in on the kickoffs as well. But with Trey Palmer, he was in a bucket hat. I don't know if it was just a rest day, if there was like just a minor injury, but it would open a door for another wide receiver to come in and maybe make a few plays.
Speaking of wide receivers, we had an article on pewterreport.com. We do Pewter Report Roundtable each week, and this week's roundtable was how many Bucs will make the Pro Bowl this year. And the reason why I say speaking of wide receivers, I don't think it's a surprise to many people that pretty much all of us, I think all of us, had Mike Evans on the list of players to make the Pro Bowl this year. Adam, who made your overall list of Bucs to make the Pro Bowl this upcoming season, which hopefully they won't be playing in because they'll be in the
Super Bowl? So I had 5. I was tied with Scott for the most Pro Bowlers that will make the Bucs team. I had Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Tristan Wirfs, Levante David, and Antoine Winfield Jr. And with all those, I actually feel really confident in them. I mean, you have slam dunks. As long as Antoine Winfield Jr. doesn't get snubbed, he should be one.
Yeah.
You have Tristan Wirfs. I think the second year at left tackle, he's going to kind of solidify his status as the best in the game at that position. Mike Evans, of course, he's Mike Evans. Another 1,000-yard season, very likely. Baker Mayfield, he was the MVP of the game last year, even though he was an alternate. I think he's going to do slightly better this year. And with so many quarterbacks opting out, I think Baker makes it on merit and his statistics regardless. And then Levante David at age 34, I think it's going to be a blend between recognizing his status as one of the best for the past decade, kind of towards the end of the career. I think Derek Brooks made it in 2007 towards the end of his career. I think David does the same, but he's still going to be a heck of a player. He's still going to be a good player and put up the tackles and the numbers to warrant his selection. So I went with 5. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so I did 4, and my thought process of it is of players that make it in like on the first voting, not getting in because of like an alternate of someone dropping out or getting in. So I had Mike Evans as well, and I think it's important and a good thing that the tides are turning, I think, with national attention, specifically for Mike, a little bit for Levante, but I think more for Mike. I don't want to name any specific aggregator accounts because some of them I just think are complete BS, but they do get a lot of attention. And there's been tweets about if Mike Evans does this year, he'll end up on A, B, C, D list of like whatever. But I think one of the most important things is that if Mike gets 1,000 yards this year, he will tie Jerry Rice for the most consecutive seasons of 1,000 yards in a row. Mike has the record of receivers to begin a career. Jerry Rice has the record of most consecutive because Jerry Rice did it in his second year in the NFL and then did it for 11 straight. So I think Mike getting another record where it's him and Jerry Rice, who many consider the greatest wide receiver in the history of the game, I think by default he has to get in. And if he puts up a similar touchdown production, of which, by the way, he led the league in last year, or tied for the league lead with Tyreek Hill, if he's anywhere near those numbers, he gets in once again. Tristan Wirfs has already been the representative of the Buccaneers, and as we know with offensive linemen, it's kind of a reputation thing because there's not like an insane amount of statistics to go by. So the fact that he's already been in a couple of times, and we're talking about now his second year at left tackle, and I think we all project him to be even better because he's even more comfortable there. I think he's a shoo-in, no question about it. Antoine Winfield Jr., even if he has a down year, I believe he is in because everybody is going to right the wrongs of what should have been last year of him getting in the Pro Bowl, considering he got freaking first team All-Pro. And then the last one I had, unfortunately, I didn't pick Levante. I just think Levante is going to fall victim again to getting overlooked. And he's had some great years. I'm not saying Levante is going to take a big step back, but if his numbers decrease a little bit based on really everyone else on the defense kind of picking it up and KJ Britt being way better than Devin White was, that means Levante David doesn't have to do as much. So I hope Levante gets in. I hope he gets kind of like that Lifetime Achievement Award that you alluded to a little bit. But if Levante gets overlooked, it wouldn't shock me. It would disappoint me. But we've seen that with Levante before. So my fourth one is actually Vita Vea. Now, Vita's been to the Pro Bowl before. I think he's widely garnered as one of the better nose tackles in the league. And I think we also have to remember, as far as defensive tackle goes, Aaron Donald retired. So that's a big, big name, a big marquee name that is not going to be on the Pro Bowl voting this year that Vita Vea doesn't have to worry about. So you take Aaron Donald out of the equation. There's still other good defensive tackles in the league, but I think Vita's at the forefront. We all know he shed some weight so he can play faster this year and add something a little bit different to his game. And another thing that may help guys like Kalijah Kancey and Yaya Diaby down the road, but another thing, Brian Baldinger of the NFL Network is a really big advocate of a lot of Buccaneers players.
He is.
Is at the forefront of it. He loves, in his Baldy breakdowns, showing Vita Vea just dismantling an offensive lineman. I mean, we all saw the game against the Dolphins and what he did in that situation.
I think that's what led to Driscoll getting cut there. Was that one play?
Unfortunately, but getting a big name like Brian Baldinger, who happens to be from a fantastic town called Massapequa, having like some more national people kind of given their seal of approval or whatever you will for him specifically, I think helps a lot with, the Pro Bowl recognition and getting him aware in front of other people outside of Tampa. So those are my four. I hope I'm wrong about Levante and he gets in, but, I try to take it with a realistic approach.
Yeah. If there's one player that you maybe didn't make your list that could make it in, who would you say? I know you alluded to Kalijah and Yaya. There's even Graham Barton. I don't know if he makes it in as a rookie. Who would be the fifth if you had to add somebody besides Levante?
Yeah, I'd probably say Yaya. Even though like the competition would be tough because edge rusher, you got Michael Parsons, and there's so many. But I think Yaya would have an opportunity if he's able to get double-digit sacks or something like that. Because the guys at NFL Network, like Good Morning Football, Peter Schrager, guys like that, they're big fans of Yaya Diaby. And for a guy that was a third-round pick that did 7.5 sacks and not starting until November and then following that up with like double-digit sacks, I think Yaya would have a good opportunity. So he would probably be my pick.
Okay, I gotcha.
What about you?
I would go with Kalijah Cansey. He would be mine. Kind of the same argument you had for Vita with Aaron Donald retiring. There's a guy that can fill that void, and Kalijah Cansey, I mean, makes sense. He was compared to Aaron Donald, but I think with Vita losing weight and being better this year, I think that opens the door for Kalijah to get more sacks. Also, playing a full season will help for him too in year 2.
Yeah, that'll be super important for him. So it was good that he came back a couple of, well, like last week, but a couple of practices ago, which was super important. You probably knew right away that Vita Vea had lost some weight if you saw it on pewterreport.com. And while we don't have an app on Pewter Report, and I don't know if we will, you can read all of Pewter Report on an app over with our friends at Autograph, which, of course, is co-founded by former Buccaneer great and probably future Ring of Honor member Tom Brady. And Brady co-founded this on the belief that devotion should be rewarded and the future of fandom belongs to the fans. So, Autograph, it's what you already do as a fan. You're just reading blogs, listening to podcasts, watching breakdowns. They have it all for you in one place, and you earn rewards for every act of fandom that you do. The Autograph app is completely free and available on Android and iPhones. It's currently featuring the NBA, WNBA, MLB, NFL, fantasy football, and NCAA sports with more sports on the horizon. So, you know, if you're a fan of the New York Knicks or the Milwaukee Bucks or the Orlando Magic, you can get your favorite NBA team on there. Same with baseball, whoever your favorite team is. They have it all for you on Autograph. So you can read Pewter Report news. You can watch the Pewter Report podcast and other videos that we have on our YouTube channel. And you can get rewarded in one free app over at Autograph. So use the promo code Pewter, that's PEWTER, to sign up and get even closer to the access of Pewter Report. So that's pretty much all we have for the Pewter Report podcast this week. But a reminder to all of our YouTube channel members, specifically the Pewter Premier members and Platinum members, turn those notifications on because we have another live Pewter Report Insider coming tomorrow at 11 a.m. We will do a Q&A live with people in the chats. You can also submit your questions in the group chat as well on our YouTube page. So make sure our YouTube channel. So make sure you have those notifications turned on. If you want to become a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, all you have to do is hit the join button on our YouTube channel on this video right now. You can do it. We have a Pewter People member, Pewter Pro member, Pewter Premier, and Pewter Platinum. Each one has a different price range per month, but each one also gives you special benefits with the higher access with the different memberships. So appreciate it for all you that have joined. Appreciate everybody that watches the show. If you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report. And, of course, our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below on this video. We will make sure we reply to it and do all that fun stuff. So it's been a great week of Bucs football. Overall, football has returned. College football this week, the NFL next week, where we will start diving into Bucs versus Commanders. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. For Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Or no. Well, we'll see you for the Pewter Insider if you're watching that. But if you're not, we'll see you next week at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody. Out.